Welcome to Connecting the Dots, a laser-focused quick-fire interview on food and the economy with international experts where we seek answers to questions all of us should be asking. I'm Ajay Jakhar, Chairman Bharat Krishak Samaj of Farmers Forum India. And today we are delighted to welcome Mr. R.S. Sodhi, CEO Amul India, the most famous dairy we have. Thank you, Sodhi Saab, for joining us today.
Thank you, Ajay ji. Thank you very much.
The Indian population and the economy are expected to stabilize by 2050. From where we are today, how do you foresee the per capita milk consumption, availability, and production in 2050? And what are the steps required to achieve a level of comfort on both these counts?
Well, Ajay ji, very good question you asked, especially if you're talking about food and the livelihood for the farmers. Today, if you see, let us talk about world. World population is around 7.3, 7.4 billion, and by 2050, it will be 9 billion or slightly more. India today is 1.37, and I think by 2050, it should reach to around 1.65 or around that billion. Now, if you see food and milk, both are related. Milk and dairy products are very important part of food all over world, including India. And food basically meets the protein, fat, and vitamins requirement of the complete food chain. So what we have seen everywhere, all over the world, gradually consumption of carbohydrate through cereal is reducing, whereas consumption of fat and protein through animal source is increasing. So population, if is increasing around 1%, consumption of protein and fat is increasing at the rate of 4.8%. And same is the case in India. And reason is simple, especially for the Asian or Far East countries, as the income level of prosperity is growing, people are spending more and more on carbon and protein-rich diet. So India, which is today, we are producing around 200 million metric ton of milk, around 427 gram per person per day. Let me tell you, and till mid-70s, it was only 100 gram per person. So you can imagine that in the last 45, 46 years, our per capita consumption has increased, multiplied by 4 times. So I'm not saying next 40 years again it will, but the way our income is increasing, the way our food habits are upgrading, so per person requirement by 2050 will be around 920 gram. And I don't think it is very large. I mean, the like Punjab, where you belong, already it is 850 or etc. All the dairy-rich, all the European Western countries, although they are eating lot of other animal source material, but still there also per capita milk or milk product consumption is 850. So if you look into that, we'll be requiring by 2050 around 550 million metric ton. So more or less 3 times more. So that way it is good. One thing is very good is this is animal source protein or fat is also very remunerative and stable source of livelihood for the rural India. Second is one also has to understand, with more and more urbanization taking place all over world. India, we may be saying today 70% or 68% people are rural and 30% urban, but 2050 it will be around half. 50% people will be in rural and 50% will be urban, around that. So what that means? There will be more mouths to feed and less hands to produce. I think the biggest problem which most of the nation in the Southeast countries and Far East Asian countries are going to face is the food security. And India is good because we know, and you also know, you are advocating that issue. day by day, farming is becoming unglamorous, not attractive to the next generation of the youth. Everybody wants to consume food. Nobody wants to grow the food. Food, I mean anything, whether plants or the animal source. So that is going to be the biggest worry for the nation, that is the food security for the more than 9 billion people of the world. So I think in coming times, we have to see how to make food growing, whether animal source are attractive, and also more towards protein and fat rich, where demand is going to come.
Government has enforced mandatory fortification of food. Next in line could be milk. What are your views on these developments?
I mean, the fortification is another big propaganda being propagated and being lobbied by the Western interests, not only in India, all the developing countries where population is more and where these people are looking for their Western interest or maybe selling more of the ingredients of the fortification. As far as India is concerned and milk fortification is concerned, already draft resolution has already come where mandatory fortification is there by FSSAI, and yet it has not been formalized. It has been just a draft has been released. But let me tell you, see, they are saying, let us meet the vitamins requirement through milk, packed milk. It is not for the loose milk. Now, in India, out of the whatever total milk is consumed, only 20% is packed milk, and that too in the bigger metro cities. Whereas deficiency, whatever people are claiming, although we don't agree, that will come later, is more in smaller places. So they are not using the packed milk. So one thing is that, so you are going to give more chemical fortification to people who are already having sufficient. So over chemical fortification is there. And let me tell you, all the vitamin A and D deficiency, what they want to met through milk fortification. So for for vitamin A, you need a one ingredient which is citral, which is all imported and just manufactured a few. So you can understand what exactly is the target. Second is, when you chemically fortify the food, so you are, and these chemical fortifications are lone molecules. So you're compromising because these lone molecules are devoid of precursor or transport system or support system and or coenzymes. So that is going to create a lot of other harm on the physiology or on the body of the human. Second, there has been no clinical study done about the safety of the fortified, chemically fortified. I mean, what are the ill effects of it? We are talking about the good thing also. And when you spoon feed these chemical fortified, your body will stop. Physiology of the synthesis by vitamin from your body will stop. What you are now synthesizing your body, that will stop. So your body, you will be totally dependent on chemical or the spoon fed vitamin. So that is also not good. And I think you must have read recently a paper published by the National Institute of Nutrition, Hyderabad, in association St. John's Medical College and Sitaram Bhartiya Institute, which has been published in American Journal, that we need only targeted fortification in India in some pockets, some geography, not universal, which now some agencies are propagating. And iron fortification or rice yet to be made mandatory. I think if you see whether iron or milk, thousands of crore rupees will be spent on this fortification. In iron, it is 2,600 crore, similar amount in milk. So this 5,000 crore rupees you are going to spend, which is not going to the targeted fortification, and it is going to the people who don't need it. So why not spend this 5,000 crore rupees for the target segment where you can give Instead of chemical, give natural fortification to them. So I think these are the things which are required to be looked in, and we have to look into some alternative source of fortification like iron in Cambodia. They said while cooking food, you hang this iron fish. I mean, during old days also we used to cook food in the iron utensils, and because of change in lifestyle, we have that in, and now we people are saying there is iron deficiency. I think we have to see actually what is the reality at the ground, instead looking to data cooked up by the Western interest.
Very good point. And what Sodhi Saab you're saying is basically that we have vested interests, and they could be in terms of private philanthropists, private civil society, and NGOs, which should not be getting into the policy space.
Bilkul, that is not their arena. They should not get into policy. If they feel India is the deficient, they should spend money on improving the nutrition of that class instead of changing the policy.
Which gets us to the next question, which is many organizations are demanding a minimum purchase price for farm produce. What would be the official position of Amul on a minimum price for procurement of milk applicable for institutional buyers only?
Well, Ajay Jakarji, my stand on this after working for more than 40 years in the farmers organization, which is owned by 3.6 million, may be different than the some of the farmers association or whatever farmers group. See, firstly, I feel anything you produce, it has to match demand and supply. Other imbalance is going to come, and something is going to be surplus, something is going to be deficit. Like in today's Indian agriculture, you know, we may be having surplus of some produce, and the other side we are spending thousands of crore rupees in importing some agriculture produce like edible oil or pulses. Second is, you have to understand milk is not like wheat or paddy or anything. It is a perishable. If you want to say the minimum purchase price is this, so one has to, there should be somebody who can purchase, who will purchase it. I mean, today, if I'm an industry and if I feel that price of milk is this, which is not remunerated to me to value add and sell, why should I purchase? And what will farmer do? Where will go? Let me tell you, government cannot purchase milk and store it like wheat through FCA, etc. So that is, I think that is not practicable also. And that is also not recommended also, because once you bring government in deciding purchase, they will also decide the sale price. Okay. And let me tell you, there is no subsidy in purchase or sale of milk anywhere except Karnataka, etc., where that is also we are not in very favor. So if you want dairy to grow, let it grow its own merit, demand and supply. Let it grow the supply chain efficiency. Let it grow by the organization of dairy industry by investing in this category so that people consume more. People should understand. Otherwise, nobody will bother about enlarging the category, marketing the category, or in communicating about how good is the milk or milk product. Then everybody will show the price, and who will hold the baby? And let me tell you, whatever MSP you say, milk or anything, kitty is same. Government of India has got the same kitty what they collect taxes and other things from us. So if you spend more in one thing, you are going to spend less on other building of agriculture infrastructure or things like a dairy sector where you can make permanent thing. I mean, recently, example, if you go in India, animal husbandry is contributing around 28% to the agriculture GDP. And if you see the central or state budget is not more than 3 to 4%. So that disparity is there. Why not invest where incomes are more? So I think one is to look into this other than the MSP.
Valid points, valid points. And Sodhi sir, we come to the next question, which is India did not sign the regional trade agreement like the Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership, which RCEP. There are international pressures to allow for milk imports into India. What are your views on it?
Very right step with government we have taken, not getting entering into the signing of the RCEP. Reason is simple. Well, you see, firstly, in other countries, dairy is a business. In India, it is a livelihood for more than 100 million, mainly the poor landless farmers. Second is India dairy is not subsidized. I mean, if you take example of USA, more than $40 billion subsidy, indirect subsidies are there. So most of the countries, the subsidies are there, or the country like New Zealand, farmers having free land of 1,000 acres, so they just send the cattle for grazing and then milk it. So their cost of it. So Indian farmer with 2 animal accounts can't compete with the rich farmers of these dairy rich countries. And second is, if you allow imports and then our farmer, where our farmer will go? I'm asking simple. I mean, you are more worried about the 10,000 farmers of USA than the 100 million farmers of India. What employment you can give them? What other source of livelihood you can give? And India, second is, like I said in the beginning, this is a more question of food security. The India population is 1.35 and then which will be 1.7 billion. You have to be secured, and milk is very important part of food. So we have to produce locally. We can't do like our edible oil, where we just to provide cheap edible oil, we reduce duties to 0 or 5, and now we know the consequences. 75,000 crore rupees of edible oil we are importing. So I think what whole world is looking, what India has achieved in milk. So once we are growing like this, why to tinker with it? When things are working well, whole world is saying, feeling envy of us, you have done a wonderful job in milk. So why you want to change it?
In light of the climate emergency that the world faces today, what is your opinion on the requirements to reduce the environmental footprint of cattle in India, more specifically on methane emission?
I think this point has been raised again by more and more people at the international level. Because I was just 4 days back, I was at Copenhagen with the International Dairy Federation. There also this point was discussed about sustainability. And I think, like anybody else on this earth, I'm also in favor that it is our duty that we have to preserve this earth and environment and climate, and we have to give to the next generation in a good shape that they can enjoy, they can live. And it is everybody's responsibility, not only of one particular farmer having 2 cows or buffalo. Please mind it. And sustainability has got only different meanings on interpretation by the different people. First, if you talk to a farmer with 2 animals or landless farmer, for him sustainability is livelihood. He wants to earn and at the day to feed his children or to educate them. For him, that is sustainability. If you talk to any nation where 1.35 billion people are there, for them the first point in sustainability is food security and providing employment. And if you talk to any industry, for them sustainability means earning something at the end of the day. And now you're coming to the major point which people have hijacked sustainability is by environment people, and it is rightly said. We all should be right. In fact, we are doing a number of jobs to protect the environment and how to reduce the methane and other things. But let me tell you, I'm just asking you, Mr. Ajay, this earth is owned by 7 billion people, and we have got equal right. Now, if you want to reduce those 20-30% methane, it has to be reduced by the people first who are producing 10 times more than the average Indian. See, average Indian is producing 1.7 or 1.8 metric ton. Vis-a-vis world average of 4.8. And all these USA, European country, average fellow is producing 18 million. So who should reduce first? A fellow who is bringing his vegetables from Kenya by air, and he is asking a farmer with 2 animals to reduce And second is, what is the per capita cattle density of Indian farmer? It is around 1.8, 1.9. It is half, it is less than US or other thing. So per capita animal density is also low. Per person methane emission is also low. So why, I mean, it has to be done by everybody. Why only the poor farmers' animals should reduce and rich farmers' animals should continue to produce?
I think that's a very valid point, and it goes for the climate emergency also, because who's responsible for the climate change?
Yes.
Has to be responsible
Who
for
has done?
reducing it.
You see, I have done it. I mean, I did it. I damaged it, and now asking the third person to the poor fellow to repair it.
No, thank you, Sodhi Saab. Thank you so much for this enlightening interview, and best of luck for your good work that you're doing. We hope to see you continue working so well years and years ahead. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Sodhi Saab.
Thank you, Ajay Jagati. Thank you very much.